Welcome, Philip from Kansas, Ling County, I think, from Kansas, that is. Glad you are with us. Nice to have everybody. And there's Miguel from all the way on the other side of the country in Washington. Welcome. It's one of the fun things we get to do to see so many different people here and see friends that we've met and made through the years. We were just talking before we got started about our relationships at SGR, and I think this is true for all people. They're with people, not really organizations. So we're glad you're here. Krista, you were at the Servant Leadership Conference, and I wasn't. I don't know if you got to hear Randy present the book by Liz Wiseman on impact players, but that's one of my favorites. Did you get to hear him do that one?
I didn't get to hear it at the Servant Leadership Conference, unfortunately, but I've heard him present that one before and heard great things after the presentation at the conference. And so I can only imagine how impactful it was because it's a great book and Randy's a great presenter. So
absolutely. And this book today that Randy's presenting is also by Liz Wiseman. It's called Multipliers, and it was written, I think, in 2012. Is that right, Randy?
2010.
2010. I think I read it in 2012. And this was a book that's had and continues to have a big impact on the way I see leadership. And I think Liz Wiseman is brilliant, and she's able to communicate such incredible insights in her books. And so, Randy, we're so glad you're with us today. Thanks for the work you did at the Servant Leadership Conference. I'll be watching it, even though I haven't seen it yet. And I'm delighted to have you share today about multipliers. So we're going to turn it over to you, and everyone get ready, and let's learn something from Randy and Liz Wiseman.
Mike, stay on the camera for a minute. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Chris. I like to do some checking. I'm taking my headphones off. Now, do me a favor and wave if you can hear me okay. All right, so we're in good shape. Welcome, everybody. My name is Randy Mayeux. Mike and Krista have introduced me. I'm doing one of these a month. It's the second Wednesday of the month for SGR. And I wish I could see all of your faces, because I want to just announce that, yes, I am aware that the Dallas Cowboys did not win the Super Bowl again this year. So it's been 29 years since the Dallas Cowboys have won the Super Bowl. If any of you, I saw somebody from Kansas, if any of you are moaning about the Kansas City Chiefs, sorry about that. This was the Eagles' year, it looks like. Well, let's get down to business. There are a plethora of books about leadership. And if someone were to ask me what is the best book on leadership, I might be tempted to say that that is the wrong question, because it takes a lot of training and a lot of thinking and a lot of reading and a lot of pondering and a lot of experience to be a good leader, an effective leader. And so even though there are a long list of books that I really like and recommend on leadership, Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin, The Wisdom of the Bullfrog by Admiral McRaven, 11 Rings by Phil Jackson, the great basketball coach, a book by John Wooden called Wooden on Leadership. We could just go on and on with a long list of books. Jocko Willink and Leif Babin followed up with The Dichotomy of Leadership. And then Jocko Willink on his own wrote Leadership, Strategy, and Tactics, which may be the better book of the three. So there are so many good books on leadership. And if you are in a leader position, or you aspire to being in a leader position, then one of your jobs in life is to learn about good leadership, effective leadership. And we can learn that from military leaders and business leaders and sports leaders. Liz Wiseman is a student of leadership. She is a consultant. She has helped companies develop, and she wrote this book in 2010, Multipliers: How the Best Leaders make everyone smarter. And then she followed up with that wonderful book called Impact Players. And it's about the contributor leading in a particular time on a particular team. And so in that case, you rise up to a leadership position on a project or on a team, and then in the next moment you fall back down and you become a follower. And so the Impact Players book was about how to make an impactful contribution no matter what your job is. It had pieces of teachings that reminded me of Radical Candor by Kim Scott that talked about the difference between rock stars and superstars. Rock stars are contributors who do their job very well, and superstars are the people who rise up the ladder and become leaders in higher positions in an organization. So this book, Multipliers, and by the way, there should be a copy of this in the chat, and if you don't have it printed out, maybe call it up on your screen, but it's better to take your pen and follow along on the handout. I'm going to start on the front. So I'm reading from the front of Multipliers handout. Some leaders make us better and smarter. They bring out our intelligence. This book is about those leaders who access and revitalize the intelligence in the people around them. We call them multipliers. And you think about old movies. I'm an old guy. And there were these disaster movies a few decades ago, the Poseidon Adventure and the Towering Inferno. And what you had happen was everyday people become a leader in a crisis situation. You could read about that in the Los Angeles fires a few weeks ago. People helping each other, stepping up, taking the lead in a little tiny area, and all of that matters. And so what Liz Wiseman says is that there are two kinds of leaders, diminishers and multipliers. And I want you to think about leaders that you've worked around and heard of. And some of them, people don't want to work with them. They don't want to work for them. They feel like they're being squelched. They are feeling diminished. Whereas other leaders, people want to work for them. They can't wait to work for them. Their reputation is, if you work with this leader, you're going to learn a lot and you're going to develop a lot and they're going to trust you and you can keep going further because they're helping you become more of what you could become. They have a growth mindset, in the words of Carol Dweck, instead of a fixed mindset. So that's the idea. Now I'm reading the rest of the first page. Here is a simple and observable fact. Some leaders bring out the best in people. Others seem to diminish the people that work with them and for them. Liz Wiseman calls the first kind of leader the multiplier, because a multiplier makes everyone smarter. Everyone smarter. More effective, more successful. The multiplier helps everyone grow in the job and become ready and able to tackle the next challenge. The diminisher, on the other hand, seems to drain the life, the joy, the energy, and the success right out of people. If you've been around, you know that there are places where if somebody enters the room, the energy level of the room goes up. And that's wonderful. And you've seen other people enter a room and people whisper, oh, I wish they weren't here. And the energy level of the room goes down. A multiplier raises the energy level of the room. That's what we're talking about. Needless to say, I'm reading again, the multiplier is the better leader. And for everyone in a leadership position, becoming a multiplier is the target to aim for. Turn to page 2. And what we now have are a number of best highlighted passages from the book. I read the book. These are the passages I highlighted. And I need to tell you that I presented this book for the first time a lot of years ago. And it's still worth reading because the point of it is so direct and important and smart. All right, I'm going to read a bunch of these. I hope you'll read all of them on your own. From the foreword by Stephen Covey, who wrote 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Number 2, at a time when many organizations do not have the luxury of adding or transferring resources to tackle major challenges, they must find the capabilities within their current ranks, the ability to extract and multiply the intelligence that already exists in the organization is red hot relevant. David Allen says we have new demands, he wrote Getting Things Done, and insufficient resources. New demands and insufficient resources. Number 3, people are often feeling overworked and underutilized. Now, this is the person themselves, the person who is following a leader. And some of them feel overworked, but it's not the right kind of work. It's not what they could be best at. So they feel overworked, but underutilized. Number 4, Peter Drucker. He's the guru of business books and thinking in the 20th century. The most important contribution management needs to make in the 21st century is to increase the productivity of knowledge work and the knowledge worker, similar to the increase in productivity of the manual worker in the 20th century. There are so many books on how difficult it is to figure out what your actual job is. We have a lot of work that makes us look busy, but is it accomplishing anything? The book Deep Work by Cal Newport talks about this. He says you need to figure out what your actual deep work is, and then you need to build up from 96 minutes. That's 20% of your day, work day, from 96 minutes to 4 hours of deep work on every work day. And that's how you become more productive. So this is really right. Number 5, and when you see one in bold or bigger font, that's my emphasis. People actually get smarter and more capable around multipliers. That is, people don't just feel smarter, they actually become smarter. They can solve harder problems, adapt more quickly, and take more intelligent action. And so they go from genius to genius maker. That's number 6. The multiplier got to their job because people think they're the genius around, they're the best around, but their real job is making other geniuses. Now, number 8, it has been said, Bono said this, that after meeting with the great British Prime Minister William Gladstone, you left feeling he was the smartest person in the room, in the world. But after meeting with his rival, Benjamin Disraeli, you left thinking you were the smartest person. That's not because Disraeli was dumb. It's because he helped you see what you had in you. He lifted you up with your smarts and your capabilities. Number 10, some leaders seem to drain intelligence and capability out of the people around them. Their focus on their own intelligence and their resolve to be the smartest person in the room had a diminishing effect on everyone else. For them to look smart, other people had to end up looking dumb. I want you to pause and ponder this a minute. If a leader brags about himself or herself, look at how smart I am, look at how capable I am, look at how much I can accomplish, then that diminishes everybody else. It is always a team effort. And a leader that doesn't understand that is going to have a lesser team. So this is really profound. They create, I'm reading again, a vortex that sucks energy out of everyone and everything around them. These leaders are idea killers and energy destroyers. Other people's ideas suffocated and died in their presence. And the flow of intelligence came to an abrupt halt around them. Around these leaders, intelligence flowed only one way, from them to others. Other leaders used their intelligence in a fundamentally different way. They applied their intelligence to amplify the smarts and capability of people around them. People get smarter and better in their presence. Ideas grew, challenges were surmounted, hard problems were solved. These leaders weren't just intelligent themselves, they were intelligence multipliers. Perhaps these leaders understood that the person sitting at the apex of the intelligence hierarchy is the genius maker, not the genius. I remember years ago when the Dallas Cowboys were better, one of the things that Jimmy Johnson was proud of was how his assistant coaches moved on to head coaching jobs on other teams. He was proud of that. He didn't hoard their ability. He assumed he could build the ability in the next assistant coach. So this idea of expanding the abilities of others is the whole thing about multipliers. All right, number 11. It isn't how much you know that matters. What matters is how much access you have to what other people know. It isn't just how intelligent your team members are, it is how much of that intelligence you can draw out and put to use. We are more intelligent than I. Let me say that again. We are more intelligent than any I. And so the leader who is self-centered and self-motivated is going to end up ultimately diminishing the team. Turn to page 3. Top of the page, number 12. And I put a star beside number 12. I'll tell you the ones I put a star beside. Leaders rooted in the logic of multiplication believe, now circle these, most people, number one, most people in organizations are underutilized. Number two, all capability can be leveraged with the right kind of leadership. And number three, therefore, intelligence and capability can be multiplied without requiring a bigger investment. Number 14, the Diminishers' view of intelligence is based on elitism and scarcity. Diminishers appear to believe that really intelligent people are a rare breed, and I am one of the few really smart people. They then conclude other people will never figure things out without me. Multipliers hold very different assumptions. Multipliers have a rich view of the intelligence of the people around them. They assume people are smart and will figure it out. Number 15, one of the most critical insights from our study of multipliers. Let me pause. Liz Wiseman studied leaders. Which ones were multiplying? Which ones were diminishing? So this is from her observation and experience. One of our most critical insights from our study of multipliers is how hard-edged these managers are. They expect great things from their people, and they drive people to achieve extraordinary results. They are beyond results-driven managers. They are tough and exacting. Indeed, multipliers make people feel smart and capable, but multipliers aren't feel-good managers. They see a lot, So they expect a lot. This is very reminiscent of Kim Scott, Radical Candor. You care personally, but then you challenge directly. The multiplier is very good at challenging directly because they say in one way or another, you can figure this out. You're very smart. You can do it. I trust you. So that's what they're communicating and enabling with their leadership. Number 19, put a star beside number 19. Multipliers operate as talent magnets. They attract talented people and then use them to their fullest. I'm a little hesitant to do this, but I'm going to mention it. There is a city that lost its city manager. He was a good city manager. And so he went to another city and he was hired as another city manager in a really wonderful city. And the police chief in the city that he left, who had said he was going to stay put, followed him to the other city. He was a talent magnet. And that's what happens. People want to work for certain city managers, and they'd rather not work for other city managers. That's the way it works. And sometimes it's the city manager and the city council, and put it into the corporate world, and it's the CEO and the board. This happens everywhere. Some of them are talent magnets, and some are talent repellers. So interesting. All right. Number 20, these talent magnets, 1, look for talent everywhere. 2, find people's native genius. 3, utilize people at their fullest. And 4, remove the blockers. Talent magnets, number 21, are blind to organizational boundaries. You can often spot talent magnets inside organizations because they are the ones who ignore org charts. They don't care where they get the next person from. They attract the next person. That person wants to come work for them, even if it moves from within one department, team, silo to another. So that's what happens. Number 24, what do they do better than anything else they do? What do they do better than the people around them? What do they do without effort? What do they do without being asked? What do they do readily without being paid? You look for those people, and then you can help make them more than they are now. Turn to page 4. Number 25. The number one difference between a Nobel Prize winner and others is not IQ or work ethic, but that they ask bigger questions. Peter Drucker. Now, I should have said this early. There are a lot of bad leaders out there. And there are some, but not enough, good leaders. There's a professor at Stanford who has studied the impact of leadership development programs, people who read books on leadership, people who attend webinars on multipliers. And this professor at Stanford said, people hear all of this stuff, but they don't become better leaders. They ignore what they learn, which means they have not learned it. And so if you're on this webinar today, you need to be honest with yourself. Maybe you need to ask somebody who knows you well. Do I lower the energy of the room when I enter? Am I a diminisher or am I a multiplier? How can I become more of a multiplier? It doesn't do any good to think about leadership, to read about leadership, to attend a leadership conference, to hear an entire 2 days on servant leadership if you're not willing to ask, what do I now do? How do I become that? That's the idea. It's the old problem of executing what we should be doing. All right, let's see. Number 28 on page 4. This is a great piece of advice. It is better to debate a decision without settling it than settling a decision without debating it. That's from Joseph Joubert. But that's really right. If you make a decision without debating it, it may not be the right decision. Number 34, what happens when the multiplier is not there? Can multipliers create an organization that can act intelligently and deliver results without their direct involvement? Now, this is the old succession problem. If a multiplier creates a team of multipliers, then when that top multiplier leaves, the organization will survive and even thrive. But if the leader makes everything dependent on them when they leave, it's disaster. So that's an important quote. Circle that one and think about it. All right, number 36, this will be the last highlight I read. Mastery of skills like those of the multiplier is developed in much the same way that the great musical piece Bolero unfolds. A layer at a time, building on a simple tune. My wife and I went to the Dallas Symphony a few months ago and heard Bolero performed. It was magnificent. A leader begins with a simple assumption and a singular idea that people are smart, and the job of the leader is to draw out the intelligence of others. Becoming a multiplier is achieved with a single idea, repeated over and over, while new skills are introduced and orchestrated into a leadership gestalt. All right, now, let me pause here a minute. I want you to think about this idea of the leader drawing out the best in others, and then it begins to build. Is that happening in your city, in your organization? And one reason I said at the beginning of this is that there is no one book to read about leadership. I would take your pen, and you've got room on the bottom of page 4, write down the phrase psychological safety. This was pioneered by Amy Edmondson. I've presented 2 books that deal with it. Many other books talk about it. But with psychological safety, people feel safe that they won't be ridiculed or belittled. And so if they fail, they're able to keep going on the team and in the group. And if there is no psychological safety from the multiplier leader on down, you're going to have diminishers circling the wagons there. I mean, this will be a diminishing organization. Turn to page 5. On the right, we constantly find that multipliers get twice the capability from their people than diminishers do. This is her finding. Leaders who are multipliers, who are able to challenge and draw out the very best in others, are extremely valuable to any and every organization. Leaders who lead others to shrink in their capacities are diminishers, and they drain the very life out of the people and the organization. So on the left, the logic of multiplication. Number 1, most people in organizations are underutilized. Number 2, all capability can be leveraged with the right kind of leadership. Now, let me pause and state the obvious. You're not going to take someone with a certain level and make them Olympic champions overnight. But everybody has a little more to offer and a little more room to grow. And every time you help somebody have more to offer and they grow a little more, you help them and you help your organization. So, yes, there are some jobs that many of us, all of us, would not be capable of doing. But we could all be better, and we're capable of more, and we have much to add if someone would help draw it out of us. Number three, therefore, intelligence and capability can be multiplied without requiring a bigger investment. If you get more out of your people in the right way, things will flourish. All right, the mind of the multiplier. These are now a couple of charts, tables that are really useful. The mind of the multiplier. How would you manage talent? The diminisher, they will never figure this out with me, will use talent. The multiplier, people are smart and will figure this out, develop talent. How would you approach mistakes? The diminisher blames the people. It's your fault. And they ridicule and they belittle and they have no psychological safety, and people end up trusting the leader and giving it their all. Reread the 5 dysfunctions of a team and learn about what people do to just make the team ineffective. Whereas, how would the multiplier approach mistakes? They explore. Let's figure out why this happened. Let's see what we can learn from it. How would you set direction? The diminisher tells where people what to do and where to go. The multiplier challenges them. I just recently presented the new book by Keith Ferrazzi, Never Lead Alone. He wrote the earlier book, Never Eat Alone. Never Lead Alone says that teams are going to be the leadership of tomorrow, not an individual leader, but the team will lead. Well, this is part of this. Who's going to set direction? The people that are multiplying their capability because of your help in them doing that. How would you, number 4, the fourth one, make decisions? The diminisher decides, whereas the multiplier consults, but he wants the team to make the decision. How would you get things done? The diminisher controls, and the multiplier supports. So here are the 5 disciplines of the multiplier. The diminisher is an empire builder that hoards resources and underutilizes talent. The multiplier is a talent magnet who attracts talented people and uses them at their highest point of contribution. The diminisher is the tyrant, creates a tense environment. Take your pen and circle that phrase, tense environment. Many years ago, in an earlier chapter of my life, I learned that morale is really critical in a church, in a school, in any organization. You do not have good morale with a tense organization. That suppresses people's thinking and capability. The multiplier is the liberator, creates an intense environment that requires people's best thinking and work and wants it, and they want to give it. The diminisher is the know-it-all, gives directives that showcase how much they know. Let me tell you a key line for a leader to learn. I don't know enough about that. Help me learn. Humility is at the heart. A learning, open-minded learning mindset is at the heart of servant leadership and of multiplier leadership. Well, the challenger is the multiplier, defines an opportunity that causes people to stretch. The diminisher is the decision maker, makes centralized, abrupt decisions that confuse the organization. They go from one thing to the other, and the people can't even keep up, and they're not told, and they're not communicated with. Whereas the multiplier is the debate maker, drives sound decisions through rigorous debate. The diminisher is the micromanager, and the investor, the multiplier, gives other people ownership of results and invests in their success. We've got about 4 more minutes. I'll do this quickly. The bottom of page 5, the central messages of this book, as per the author. Diminishers underutilize people and leave capability on the table. Multipliers increase intelligence in people and in organizations. People actually get smarter and more capable around them. And number 3, multipliers leverage their resources. These are findings. Corporations can get 2 times more from their resources by turning their most intelligent resources into intelligent multipliers. Now, on page 6, at the top of the page, the results by extracting people's full capacity. Multipliers get twice the capability from people than do diminishers. And I'm going to tell you quickly this story. It's an opening story in the book, and it's great. There was a student in Israel who was learning to drive tanks, and he was failing, and he was about to be kicked out. And he got another chance with a different instructor leader, and he became the #1 student. The exemplar. What was the difference? The first leader belittled him, told him he couldn't make it, told him he didn't have what it took. The second one saw the possibilities, and he felt freer and then blossomed into the #1 in his class. That's a great, great story. All right, the multiplier effect. 5 elements. Attract and optimize talent, create intensity that requires best thinking, extend challenges, debate decisions, instill ownership and accountability. And so you have, and this is kind of in the middle of the page, the cycle of attraction. A players get fully utilized and grow, leading those exact players to become A+ players. Now they have increased value in the market, and they solidify that team or that company or that organization with that leader as with a reputation as a place to grow. Whereas the cycle of decline is A players get boxed in and limited, and they become A- players or B players because they're not given a chance. They lose confidence and recede. They have decreased market value, and it develops a reputation as a place to die. So think about your reputation. Now, I'll let you read the rest of these on your own, but I'd like you to turn to page 7 at the bottom, my lessons and takeaways. Number 1, all leaders fall somewhere in the diminisher to multiplier spectrum. I need to say, sometimes a multiplier can be a diminisher. It's not very often that a diminisher can be a multiplier. If the people feel diminished, they will not flourish and they will not perform well. Number 2, this multiplier kind of leader excels at making people feel accepted, and then because they're accepted, they accept the challenge. Number 3, the people fortunate enough to have a multiplier as a leader feel like they are genuinely supported because they are. Number 4, the multiplier functions with a growth mindset. That's the book Mindset by Carol Dweck. The diminisher functions with a fixed mindset. The growth mindset is better. And number 5, people will likely not develop into their most productive self without a multiplier as a leader. We need leaders, mentors, teachers, coaches who believe in our capability. Organizations will not be effective and then grow in capability without a team of multiplier leaders. Multipliers, how the best leaders make everyone smarter. I hope you found this useful. Back to Mike Mowry. Mike?
Thank you, Randy. Man, every time I hear this presentation, I'm challenged, and especially even today with the fact that, as a leader who wants to multiply their effect, you have to push people out of their comfort zone. But before you can push them out of their comfort zone, they have to know that you are for them, that you believe in them, like you spoke about. And we need organizations with not just one or two multiplying leaders, but a team of them. So fantastic. Thank you so much. We look forward to hearing from you again next month. I want to say thank you to Lisa Shook, who does all the work behind the scenes and makes all of these work. And thank you to everyone who's tuned in today. Next week, we have a great webinar again. This will be a discussion between Mike Herr, the city manager of Bartow, Florida, along with Connie Minich, who is now an SGR recruiter and facilitator, as they talk about innovation in local governments. And they've worked together in this capacity. I've heard Connie talk a lot about this in meetings we've been in, and I'm really looking forward to hearing her discussion with Mike Herr on this. I hope you'll join us with this. For that, Krissa, any final words?
I wanted to let everyone know that this presentation is available on the SGR YouTube channel. And Carrie, I'll put a link to the handout in that description as well so that you can access that there.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Chris.
And Mike, let me mention that next month's book is Reset: How to Change What's Not Working by the great Dan Heath. Dan Heath. And so Reset next month on the second Wednesday of the month.
Yeah, that'll be great. Well, thanks again, everyone. Have a great day. We'll see you.